It is a huge honor for me today to be podcast interviewing Coach Heidi Mount. And I'm so excited to do this. Heidi has been in the dental field since 1988. She is known for helping dentists make $500 a day on tomorrow's schedule. She has been licensed as a dental assistant in 2 states, worked as an office manager for over 20 years, and then ventured out to become a virtual consultant and has been helping dental offices in the United States and international. Heidi, what's a virtual consultant?
So basically, I don't go into the dental office. I do it all like I'm talking to you right now over a video platform.
Is that so you don't have to bathe and shower and all that?
Absolutely. I work out in my yoga pants and then show up and help dentists.
So Heidi, you've been in this field. You got into it in '88. I got into it in '87.
Yeah.
How many dental offices have you seen, and why do you think some dental offices just get it done financially and other offices just don't get it done financially? Why do some struggle so much, and why do others it's so easy?
I think the ones that struggle are the ones that don't want to do anything they don't want to change what they're doing. You know, nobody likes change. So I think a lot of them are just keep banging their head against the wall, doing the same old thing with the same old staff, and they don't work on how to improve it.
I also believe deep down inside that a lot of dentists, when their house is not in order, they just love to, on the weekends, get out of town. They either go to the lake or the cabin, or they fly clear across the country to learn some new magic bullet dental technique.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're going to fix all their problems by buying some shiny object or toy or whatever. But they just don't want to get their house in order. When you're in the offices and when you're working with dentists at the house in order, how much of that is the wrong people versus just the right people who aren't trained? I mean, when you're talking to dentists, how often do you say you got to get rid of Susie Q? This is not working. Versus, let's invest into Susie Q and let's train her and get her up to speed.
Well, so far I haven't had to tell anybody to get rid of somebody. I've had a lot of people ask me what their opinion is, and I give it to them. But for the most part, you just kind of work with their personality style, and you kind of. One time I worked with somebody, and they weaned themselves out. They're like, this isn't the culture I want, and so. I think just being able to work with their personality, knowing what they need, if they're the type of person they're super expressive, then you better make it fun. If they're super analytical, then you better give them something smart to do.
And if someone was, if you were in an airplane sitting next to a stranger and asked them, and someone asked you, what would you describe the personality of the average dentist? What would you say? Is there an average dentist personality?
They're very, very smart individuals, but when it comes to the business, it can be difficult dealing with so many different personalities.
Well, yeah, we all believed in undergrad that the magic keys were found in calculus and physics and organic and the Krebs cycle, and we spent a gazillion and a half hours in the library learning all this complex stuff that we never used once. I mean, I can't think of any time I've used any geometry or trig. And then you sit there and get into dentistry, and half your problems are the personalities of your patients, and the other half are the personalities of your staff.
Yes, yeah. And people just don't like going to the dentist, so you got to figure out a way to make it easy.
I can't figure out why on Mars Matt Damon wanted to come back. I mean, he just would have been there with no people. Wouldn't that be heaven? So what motivated you to become a coach?
Well, my dad was like yours, a blue-collar worker and all that, and he ended up working very, very hard to provide for his family, and only to retire and then have passed away, developed health problems, probably from the stressors of the jobs we all tend to get. And I decided, I paid the bills for dentists. I've worked with a lot of them. They all have a lot of the same problems, and I wanted to find a way to help people that I can prevent stress in their business. A lot of doctors that I talk to are plateaued. They're frustrated. They've tried to train their staff. Their staff won't listen to them.
Are you talking about their marriage or their dental office?
Probably both.
So that is so. What percent of your time do you feel like you're an armchair psychologist versus an armchair consultant?
A lot of it is psychology. You're right.
It really is. You're an armchair consultant, aren't you?
Yeah, sometimes the staff is everything they're complaining about. I feel like if the dentist understood them, they probably wouldn't be in that position. So, for example, you have some girl that is just needing to hear she's doing a great job. She just never hears it. It's always do this and do that, and why aren't you doing this and why aren't you doing that? When she doesn't know what she's doing right or doesn't know what she's doing wrong. And if you knew that they just need a little words of encouragement, you would probably give them more energy to get what you want.
So what would you some of these kids coming out of school that they got $350,000 in debt. Do you think it's different for them to be successful today? I mean, okay, so I've done 3 decades. Do you think a kid coming out with $350,000 of student loans got the same shot I did at just opening up and building a successful dental office business practice?
Absolutely. Yeah, they certainly don't need to, be in the corporate world. That's a great way to, if you want to work for a chain, you want to learn how to get fast, you want to, learn the ins and outs and see what skills you can gain and what have you. But yeah, certainly owning your own business and working on your own, there's a lot of money to be made.
So what advice would you give these kids? I mean, they're coming out of school. Do you think working at like Heartland or Pacific Dental is a good place to also learn business? I mean, those guys got more business systems than you can count. Do you think it's a good way to not only, when I got out of school, I did my dental school requirements again, like the first 4 months. So you need to do your 10,000 fillings, crowns, what have you. So all that. But do you think working for some of these big corporates is also a way to learn a lot of business that you can take into your dental office when you own your own place?
I think it depends which corporate you work for. Some of them are saying, go ahead and seal over that decay, just get them in, get them out. And others are doing a good job. It's hard to say. It's hard to say. I think the bottom line is you got to have the people skills to make a successful business. You got to be liked, you got to be trusted, you got to be authentic.
Liked, trusted, authentic. So how would you recommend a dentist become a better people person?
Study like crazy. Study
Yeah.
like crazy. So, learning to ask questions, learning to listen, learning to, reiterate what you find out back to the patient. I think learning all the personality styles so you can relate to them better.
I had a big breakthrough. My library writes this. I mean, I have 1,000 textbooks that I've read since dental school, and I've never been able to read fiction. I've tried. I've got 4 pages into it, and it just seems like such an entire waste of time. And I always felt the same about fiction movies until one day, I forgot how old I was. I think I was like 35 or 40. Hated
Yeah.
them all. Called them chick flicks. Waste of time. And then I realized, wow, these are HR movies. And so start watching these chick flicks and trying to see if you can understand human behavior from your staff, from your patients, and all that stuff. And once I had that, I reframed fiction from waste of time to this is business, man. You can better manage people by watching love stories and fiction and all these because humans are just so infinitely complex. You say, how did you realize there was more money to be made in a dental office, or that you could add appointments in a schedule and to be able to transfer that skill to dental offices?
Yeah, so when I was working as a dental assistant or office manager, whatever, I was realizing people were completed. The treatment plans were totally done. They were checked out, getting their next cleaning in. And then they were saying things to me like, wow, you have pretty teeth. I wish I had teeth like that. Or they'd say, when can I get this crown? When's it going to be covered by insurance so I can get this black line by my gums gone? And so there was just constantly questions that I'm thinking they need more, or they'd say, oh, I want my teeth bleached. I saw the orthodontist, but, it's 2 years in braces, and I didn't really find that, straightening out my front 4 crooked teeth would be worth it for 2 years and $6,000. And I'm like, you want your teeth whitened? What about, have you heard of, veneers? And so I'm like, we can just put on like a custom made contact lens right over. You'll have instant straight, instant white, whatever. And I just realized people wanted more.
I always realize that one of the most exciting things for me for group practice, I hired my first associate right out of the gate just out of boredom. And I was so dumb, I wasn't smart enough to think, okay, you're a punk 24-year-old kid. You should get like a 64-year-old dentist and learn something. So I went
Right.
out and got a buddy that was my same age from the same school, Bob Savage from Creighton, just to have fun. But
Yeah.
I realized the one thing in group practice that if a dentist is going in for a recall,
Uh-huh.
it's a recall exam, and it's pretty much just check the cleaning and all that stuff. But if a different dentist had seen that didn't do the new patient exam, went into a recall, it was more like a new patient exam. And so some of these people come in, and the first time they're seen, they get a crown and two fillings, or they talk about things like that. But then recall exams are just like 3-minute checks, and they never probe deeper. And it's tough to get to that recall exam mentality to go in there and look at a fresh mouth and say, do you love your smile? Have you ever thought
Right.
about straightening your teeth? Have you ever thought about replacing that partial with implants so that it doesn't come in and out of your mouth? I mean, it's just what advice would you give on that?
There are so many places I've been that I wish they upsold me. They would have saved me so much time and hassle. Like my husband just got his glasses done. He comes home, he sees the optometrist, great place. I mean, they were like clockwork with their systems and everything. Got his Nike glasses, anti-scratch, anti-glare, all this bit. He's a fireman, right? So he's really busy. Well, he comes home and I'm like, well, did you get your contact lenses ordered with that? And he's all, no, they didn't offer me any. I'm like, how are you going to read your gauges when we scuba dive? Right? So, when you go to the Apple store and you buy a cell phone and they say, do you want a protective case with that? It's not being salesy, it's solving a problem that they might have. So I just feel like, just offer more. If you have sensitive teeth, offer the fluoride. If you don't want to wear partial denture, offer the implants or bridges. But I just feel like we get all this training and then the team doesn't even know we have it. So like another example, I got my allergy shots at an ENT doctor. And one of my girlfriends told me she got these custom earplugs and she doesn't hear her husband snore anymore. And I thought, well, wouldn't that be great to have just even on an airplane when you want to check out or whatever? So I texted my ENT doctor because he's married to a dentist. And I said, hey, do you have custom earplugs there? He's like, yeah, come on in. So I go in and I'm thinking, I've been going there 15 years and no one ever told me. So they bust out this pamphlet of 15 different types of custom earplugs, even if for a dentist was on there. I didn't even know they had one. I've been in the field forever. But yeah, so they had, and I thought, okay, I'm spending $150 on something totally not covered by insurance. Didn't know they offered it. There's no, I know I don't need to see an audiologist. I hear fine. But I didn't know they had all these extras that I could have purchased. And I probably would have done it 15 years ago, I think just if we're going to get all this education with the, same day machine crowned and blah, 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 then you got to be bragging about it to your patients. And I think the best way to explain what you have to offer is to give patient examples. So you don't give their name, but you're like, oh my gosh, you would not believe this patient came in. They were going to this class reunion and we put on these veneers. They look 10 years younger. So you're just bragging about the other patient, not yourself, right?
Right.
So it's kind of giving stories and just putting it in their brain that, wow, that could be me and I could have that too.
I tell people that when I bleach my teeth, almost no one will believe me that I'm 80 years old. They're like, wow, you're 80. So is it tough being married to a fireman? I mean, he probably like doesn't let you smoke in bed or play with matches. Is that tough? When he goes out of town, do you just like go in the backyard and play with matches?
No, but I'm glad I'm married to a fireman because I've had a lot of bad things happen. I had a stove blow out on me, like one of those wood stoves. I've had, when I was pregnant, I had an oven blow out on me. And then when I was 16 years old, I had an electric blanket catch on fire. So I knew I scored when I met a fireman.
Wow, I feel guilty because when the batteries in my remote control went out, I replaced them with the batteries of the fire detector.
Oh,
Smoke
so
detector. I
bad.
thought, I thought maybe that's not right, Ryan. Maybe we should fix that. So, what role do verbal skills play in treatment planning, and how do we find out what is important to them or get to their motivating factors?
Yeah, so obviously the verbal skills is pretty much everything you need to be able to sell dentistry. Asking a lot of questions and listening. So, like you were bringing up, what do how could you change your smile, or what do you like about your smile? Usually, if you say, what do you like about your smile, you get everything you don't like. So, I kind of like that question because then they start complaining. So what happens is when people start complaining, everybody has a solution for them right away. So I would just say, just give it a couple more minutes and don't jump into the solutions, but get everything out. So what else, or tell me more, or how does it make you feel? Asking more questions and then ending it with, is that everything or is that all? And then, yeah, we can fix you with that, fix that up for you. And when you are going to, give a solution, make sure to use their verbal skills, or what they used and described verbally with that. So if they say they don't like the black line or a cap or whatever, you would use the words they would use, and just repeat it back to you. We can go ahead and straighten that, straighten your teeth, or replace that for you, or take that gray line out of your tooth, or whatever's bothering them. If they're going to get married and they want whiter teeth, then you just say, we're going to make it nice and bright and white for your wedding, and things like that. So just using their words, not giving so many details. I feel like I had a contractor come in, and he's talking about this circuit breaker and the gauge and the wires, and 30 amp versus 40 amps, and where he's going to cut the hole in my wall. I just wanted to plug in my dryer and get it going. Like, I think just so many details are given that don't need to be given. And I think another issue with the mistakes a lot of offices make is when the left hand doesn't talk to the right. The front desk answers the phone. Oh, I don't want to wear partial denture like my mom had, and they never tell that to the back. So of course it's in one of their options versus just jumping right to a bridge or implant, or something, because, or you just state it, like restate what they want. I understand, Mrs. Heidi, that you don't want to have a partial like your mom did, so in order to do that we should get to this bridge, or just kind of use their words in when you're communicating with them, so they know you heard. And then you're explaining it to the back office. Even if you're going to use an intraoral camera and you bust open that, picture up on the screen, then you're kind of queuing up the doctor before he walks in. I think those work really nice when they're excited about what, if you're just going to say, oh, Dr. Howard will come in and tell you how to fix that. They're already ready for the doctor to come in and give some solutions and things like that. So I think queuing up the doctor helps the doctor out a lot, because they know the staff isn't on commission.
Heidi, that was that was the exact reason in 1999 that I went paperless with the charge. It wasn't to save trees or save papers. It was the fact that I would always, from 87 to 98, I would always tell them, when the patient is talking to you, you have to pull the chart and write down these notes. But the reality was, I had them, first I had really long phone cords so they could reach all the charts, and I went to headsets so they can get the chart. And the bottom line, they just weren't pulling the charts of time and all that stuff. So I thought to myself, the only way I'm going to get them to pull the chart is to get rid of the chart and put it on their computer terminal for
Yep.
notes like that. I also saw that with dentists who use electrosurge instead of packing cord. I'd say, well, do your patients have any post-op pain? They go, no, I don't hear anything, because the patient wouldn't come back for 2 weeks. But then I
Mm-hmm.
go to the front desk girls, and they'd say, oh my God, they call and ask when the pain's going to go away, and can they get
Mm-hmm.
some pain pills, or can they get a refill of the pain pills? And then there's doctor living in a cave thinking there's no post-operative pain because none of these notes were taken down. I have a problem whenever I tell a girl she should bleach her teeth. She always tells me I should lose 50 pounds. So am I saying that wrong?
Yeah, I would use the word whitening, but I don't know. I think if you were to ask her a few questions, like how do you feel about how your mouth looks, or something else, your smile,
Do you
or
like your smile?
yeah, I think, yeah, probably don't want to go there.
I heard on the news today that a girl stabbed her friend because she called her ugly. So now I think I'm going to be very, very careful around ugly girls, not to
Yes.
upset them. I think
Yeah, you
that's,
don't want to get stabbed these days.
yeah, I don't want to get stabbed in the dental office. What common mistakes do you see in a dental office where they are losing money out the back door?
I think just not taking opportunities that are there. So, if let's say a family comes in and you see a 4-year-old kid sitting around or a friend, you're not offering them an appointment. So that 4-year-old should probably get started. So I think just looking around and looking for opportunities. So I just, look over to the 4-year-old or the parent, hey, we haven't seen little Susie Q here. You want to get her chart started and get seen for a happy visit? We'll give her a ride in the chair and make it a fun visit and blah, blah, blah. And then they're like, oh, yeah, I didn't know when to get them started or whatever. So we get them started, and I just kind of explain, well, I don't want them to have, some jumping up and down and bust out their front tooth and that being the first experience at a dental office. I think we should have them have fun so they can see the fun visit, so that, you're just looking, there's a kid or a friend or somebody in the room. You're like, who's your dentist? Because they're not going there. And then they're like, oh, I haven't found one yet, or I don't know, I haven't been to mine. 80% of the time of the people right in your office do not have a dentist. So I think, just making sure you take every opportunity. The UPS guy comes in, it's like, hey, you need some chapstick? Here you go. They're going to think of you first. But, a lot of it's just, do you have any sensitive teeth? And, they're 30 years old and they have root recession or whatever. You can offer them fluoride treatment to help with that. We encourage them to take it home take home fluoride and keep going that to help them with the root sensitivity. But I think just constantly just offering anything. If you see they have crooked teeth, or, you can ask, do you have any meat that gets stuck anywhere, in your teeth? And then sometimes that you can make a restoration, whether fillings, crowns, or whatever, and make it a nice tight contact. But just kind of trying to find out their irritating things with their mouth so you can help fix them, fix it. A lot of times people are, they don't need anything, but maybe they're retiring in 2 or 3 or 4 years, then you might be able to talk about how to make sure they get through retirement before they're living on a fixed income or before their insurance is cutting off, and, kind of pre-plan to get their mouth in gear for retirement. And there's just a lot of, you just look at their age and what they could possibly need and try and strike up conversations with them.
So Heidi, you used to be an office manager for 2 decades. What do you think of an office manager when you look at dental offices? Some have they have 2 assistants to receptionists, and one of the receptionists is kind of in charge of the front, and they have 2 assistants, and one of the assistants kind of in charge of the back, maybe supplies and all that stuff. Other offices get an office manager to be really in charge of the whole office. Do you think it's do you think dental offices that have an office manager do better and perform better and all that stuff, and the dentist makes more money despite having to pay for this extra position? Or do you think an office manager is overrated, not necessary, or does it depend? What are your views on to office manager or not? Especially nowadays, there's a big explosion group, the FADOM, where you get your fellowship in the American Academy of Dental Office Managers. Talk about dental office managers. You think that's a solution or not?
I think what an office needs is a leader. And so it depends on the dentist, I would say. Everyone needs accountability, and they need to have a goal and they need to have accountability. So however that can happen, where, everyone's doing their job and they're accountable to it. And whether that means I'm filling the schedule, or I'm making sure there's $5,000 scheduled today, or it means I'm making 20 recall calls and that keeps our schedule full. So obviously you have to know, the key metrics to get all that to happen. But as far as an office manager, you got to have somebody who leads and can see the big picture. Usually there's one person who can hear when the drill stopped and when I can see the patient and kind of keep the flow going. I don't want to call it micromanage, but you're making sure everybody's doing their job. And I think the follow through with everything's very important. I remember even when everyone was done, I was reviewing charts and I was making sure all the I's were dotted and the T's were crossed. And then, post-op, or bring them back for another appointment if needed, if something got missed. A lot of times there's an emergency patient that gets seen and you take care of them. They got their x-ray, they got their root canal, whatever. And out the door they go. Well, they never got in the recall system. So now they're lost. So I see that happen a lot too, where just patients are just lost. They get the one appointment. And so my philosophy is the purpose of an appointment is to make another appointment. I don't care if it's a year from now. Everyone should be in the schedule.
And for younger kids who want to know why people like Heidi and I, who got into this field at I was 87, she was 1988, is dot your I's and cross your T's. That comes from England, where the king would write a writ, W-R-I-T. And the problem with writs is that a lot of people would get executed when it had nothing to do with what the king meant. So when they started in America, they didn't go with writs. They went with individual case law, because they thought every individual court case was different and it depended on the absolute details. And the devil is in the details. And what you said was really profound, because what the dental office needs a leader, and that could be the dentist. It could be an office manager. It could be your lead assistant. I've been in dental offices. There's this one dental office up the street from me that is just crushes it. And it was because 25 years ago, the hygienist said, "You're paying me a lot of money per hour, but I'm worth more not even cleaning teeth. I'm going to go around and make sure the patients are seated. I'm going to numb up your patients. So when you walk in there, they're already numb. And so this $40 an hour hygienist has been walking around for 25 years, numbing up just being the leader, making sure everybody's accountable. So I want to say the same thing. Are you big into morning huddles? Is that a big part of a dental office success?
Yes. Yes. You need to plan your day. You need to find out who's going to go what and where, how much are we going to make, if we're going to have an emergency, where are we going to put them. Yeah, definitely you want to communicate who's going to numb them up, who's going to see which patients are the gold star patients. We're going to ask for a referral or a video referral or take a social picture for your media. Yeah.
So your husband's a firefighter. What is your favorite firefighter joke? Like there's lawyer jokes, dental jokes. Is there a good fireman joke?
No, I don't have one.
I totally changed my view of firefighters back about 15 years ago. So all my boys, the only reason I went to high school is for the wrestling team. The only reason I made good grades is because they kick you off the wrestling team. So all my boys started wrestling when they were like 5 years old, and they're amazing. Some of my boys went like 3 years without losing a match. But one of the other kids in their class, their dad was a fireman. And then they were in high school, and a house about 4 blocks down, 5 blocks down, and it just completely went up in flames. We were in the backyard and saw smoke, so we all ran down there, and our wrestling buddy's dad's a fireman, and the trucks pull up, and he gets out like he's, like nonchalant, doesn't even care, walking real slow, gets some stuff. This house is an inferno, and he just walks just casually up to the front door, opens it, and walks in, and we're like, what the hell? And like 30 minutes later, he comes out. So when it's all done, we're all standing there behind the line and everything. And, we were yelling at him. He came over and talked to us. I said to him, what the hell's going on? He said, yeah, I wasn't even working tonight, but I have a box. I heard the calls, and I realized that everybody showing up to this fire was going to be a young kid. And so I wasn't even working tonight. I just wanted to be the first guy in that house because then he was telling me, what he was looking for, and didn't want him. It was a 2-story. He didn't want the stairway to collapse or whatever. But unbelievable. But the point I was bringing up about the firemen is the fact that in America, according to the insurance data, for every 100 cavities we diagnose, we only drill, fill, and bill 38%. If your husband only put out 38% of the fires, they would fire him in a week, a month? How long could he go by only putting out 1 out of 3 fires?
Not at all.
I mean, they put out and so my question is this. Here's the question. Since the United States of America has 211,000 people alive with a dental degree, and they put out 38% of the cavities get drilled, filled, and billed. So since they don't put out 2 out of 3 cavities, do you recommend a treatment plan presenter or a treatment plan coordinator to present the treatment? Or do you think you would go back to that dentist who's only getting 1/3 of the cavities drilled, filled, and billed? And that's what bothers me the most about Dentaltown. They'll talk till 3 in the morning about what bonding agent to use, what filling material to use. Now, big debates, amalgam versus composite. I'm like, why do you even care? You don't even treat 2/3 of them. I just wish you removed all the decay on everyone and filled them all with butter. You know what I mean? It would be far more better disease management just to remove the decay and have them walk out with a hole in their tooth than to only remove 1/3. So how could you get the dentist to go from 1/3 to 2/3? And that's also what I always seen. There'll be two offices in the same medical dental building. They both have the same number of patients, and one's doing 750,000 a year, and the other's doing $1.5 million a year. And the difference is because one person only gets 1/3 of his treatment plan scheduled, and the other person only gets 2/3. So even the best don't even do 1/3. So how can a dentist go from 1/3 of the cavities getting filled to 2/3? What advice would you give my homies on that?
You know, you bring up a common thing too. So much of what we don't do, people don't want to sell. They're afraid the patients think they need a new car, blah, blah, blah. I have one doctor who's, he's like, well, I'm retiring and I don't want them to think so everybody has their excuses of why they don't diagnose and whatever. Or I've been doing this a long time and I know it'll last. And I'm like, how do you have the crystal ball to know when it's going to break? If this guy's a pilot, he doesn't want to take that risk of it breaking while he's traveling, or if you're retiring, they probably want you, the doctor who's been taking care of them for 20 years, to do the crown versus the new guy. So why not just say, I've been taking care of you 20 years, and I want to make sure to take care of you before I retire. I don't know why everybody's so afraid to diagnose or say, what needs to be done. But if you put an intraoral photo up there and they see a gray cusp, you don't need to wait for it to break. You can just say, it's totally leaking. It's going to flake off one day. You can do it now, or you can wait for it to break and hope it doesn't break in the wrong way where I can still save the tooth.
Well,
I don't know.
I always hear these dentists say they don't like to sell. And then I look at people who cover their mouth when they smile. No one's recommended bleaching, bonding veneers, Invisalign. I had a couple of my patients lose their marriage because I didn't sell them implants, or they told me years later that when they got their denture, they couldn't sleep with them in at night, and they couldn't take them out in front of their husband. So they were telling their husband, you're snoring, you can't sleep in my room. And then the husband was sleeping on the couch, and a couple of years of that. And then he left, and she was just crying, telling me how much she wished she would have kept her taking care of her teeth, and she'd still have her husband. And so then when I hear dentists say they don't like to sell dentistry, I always think, then get out. I mean, if you don't believe in what you're doing, leave. I mean, so I want to ask you about your husband, a fireman. Who sells the fire? Your husband hears there's a fire and he puts it out. Why does someone have to sell? It's a cavity, it's a broken, or your dental health is affecting your mental health. You're covering your mouth and you smile. You don't have to sell the same. So why? How do you get doctors to reframe selling to have some passion about your profession and tell everybody what you do with excitement?
Yeah, you just have to prevent issues, or that's why you're a preventative dentist. It's not to wait for it to be a problem. It's very easy to sell something when somebody breaks something or they're in pain. But the problem is when it gets to that point, it's usually too late. So we want to do it early on. It's not selling. You're solving a problem that they want. They come to you and they don't know what to do. Like I have so many, there's this one client, they get hundreds of calls a day because they pay for all that advertising. And they call all these patients and get them in. And then the doctor's saying, well, go home and think about it. It's like, don't say that. They don't know what to even think about. Just tell them what they need. Give them some options, tell them the risks, tell them the benefits, and what have you. And now, like 98% of the patients are all scheduling. So she's like, oh, I never thought about it like that,
So I want to address another problem. There's a lot of dentists who have seen their overheads just keep creeping up higher and higher and higher. And I'll get emails from dentists say, my God, everybody says labor should be 25% and under, and that includes health insurance, 401k, everything. And my labor's, 32%, 35%. A lot of overhead creep up. What do you tell dentists? Or what's your solution to that?
Well, the solution is to make more money. And, that's why I teach how to make $500 more a day on tomorrow's schedule, because it's so simple and it usually solves 90% of your problems. It doesn't have to do with doing anything shady or ripping things off, but being thorough about reviewing your charts, seeing if they have diabetes and things like that. The overhead in general, the bills are going to be the biggest problem because insurance write-offs are getting bigger. The net profits are going smaller, cost of living goes up. But people are still buying. So if you can, be offering everything you have to offer in your practice and have every single team member taking intraoral photos, reviewing things, asking questions, listening for answers, and offering solutions, it's pretty simple to go, oh, you have, a prom coming up or you have a class reunion coming up. Would you like to do anything different? Now's the time. Most patients are totally fine with that, and then financially, everybody's worried about the cost or whatever. I just flat out ask them, what's your budget? What can you afford? When you go buy a gift or you go buy a car, that's what the sales dude's saying is, how much can you afford? Because personally, I don't care what my car costs. I care what it costs per month. So I think in dentistry, it's the same way. If you know they can afford $200 a month, well, don't be offering them 18% here, and, you can put $2,000 down, and then you could do this, and you're offering all these numbers. They're so confused already from the treatment plan that if you were just say, oh, $200 a month, well, with this particular outside agency, you can do $3,000 worth of work and have it paid off in this amount of time, and you're just done. So I think just keeping it really, really simple. But yeah, I think offering more to every single patient, taking every opportunity. When you notice only 1 out of 5 of their family are in the dental chair, you probably should make sure the other 4 people either start being a patient there or get scheduled. So when you take every opportunity with every patient, you can add so much.
And the easiest one and the silliest one is these dental offices, these dentists and hygienists have been treating grandma every 3 months for gum disease for a decade, and they've never seen grandpa once. And you're like, well, do they kiss? Do they trade bacteria? I mean, you understand that on the bottom half of the body with STDs. Why do you not get that on the other half? So you talked about your program on coachingdentist.com. Coachingdentist.com. What are my homies going to find at www.coachingdentist.com? And what is your program? And what is also the difference between coachingdentist.com and join highperformancecultureprogram.com to keep them smiling? Is that your blog?
No, actually, okay, so
it's 2 websites. It's 2 different websites.
It is. I just launched a program that I'm opening up, enrolling at this time, called High Performance Culture Program. So if you just email me at Heidi, Heidi, at coachingdentist.com, and dentist is singular, so Heidi at coachingdentist.com, I can give you the link to it. But
and Ryan, we'll put it in the notes, the link too. We'll put it in the notes to okay?
Awesome. Yeah. So I'm going to teach 6 virtual classes, jam-packed with everything I know from how I sold 98% of all my treatment plans that I presented. Basically, there's so many staff members just clocking in and clocking out and just doing what's on the schedule that I wanted to teach them exactly kind of what we were talking about, how each employee needs to become a leader. So what I tell the dentist is there's no more entitlement mentality. I teach them ownership mentality. And then I tell the staff that if you do and can demonstrate what I teach you, you will be paid the highest in your field of what you're doing. So I teach them everything I had learned for the decades that I've been into it. I want people paid what they're worth, the dentist, the staff, the everything. And I kind of feel like when you develop a high performance culture in your practice, even your patients are wanting to apply at your office. It's just so fun and personal that they just love it. It's because their office morale is up. They're working to the core values of the practice. They know their niche. They know how to market it without spending all this money on advertising. But the program is to keep the staff engaged. There's so many consultants out there that can come in and set up the systems, and then they're kind of left to, how do I maintain it all? So I wanted to get something that was quick, fun, and interactive, so the team was engaged with me. And then just mainly what I'm going over is how to get the patients to say yes to the treatment plans. And the best thing about the program is 100% money back guarantee. So if they don't see the investment back within 30 days, I just give them their money back, because everyone makes well over $500 more a day when they do this program. So I decided to open it up, and I'm going to start it June 15th, 2 Wednesdays a month during a lunch hour. They just sit and watch in a computer. And then I have questions and answers after, so they can ask about particular things going on in their office, like we have this case coming up, and what about this and what about that? And I could help them with the objections or the benefit statements on how to get a patient to say yes.
I think what you said about the entitlement mentality, I think it's so hilarious, because whenever you meet an American dentist who's my age, they're always a male, Republican, conservative, blah, blah, blah. And they're always bad-mouthing the government as being entitled. And then you look at their staff, and you're like, dude, your staff is lazier than the post office. You make fun of the government all day while you watch Fox News with a beer, and your staff gets a cancellation from 11 to 12. Someone calls in at a quarter to 12 with a toothache. They don't see any openings in the afternoon, and they're certainly not going to see them at lunch, because they've done nothing from 11 to 12. But at 12 o'clock, by God, they're all going to lunch for an hour, because they're postal office, IRS, entitlement mentality. And then at 5 o'clock, they didn't even make their break-even point. Say their break-even point is $3,500 for the day, and it's 3:30, and someone calls up with a broke tooth, so it'd be $1,000 crown. Could probably take their day from a 70% overhead to a 55% overhead, and they're like, no, we're leaving at 5. I mean, this is the post office. I mean, my postman delivers mail every Saturday at my house, and I always run out there and get it from him and whatever. And there's not 3 dental offices in Phoenix open on a Saturday, and and these dentists make fun of the post office. They make fun of the IRS. They're actually some of the most entitled people on the planet, and they give them a raise every time the Earth goes around the sun. Just based on purely the fact that the Earth, on its own momentum, went around the sun without any help from your assistant. You know what I mean? And and everybody, yeah. So the entitlement thing is. So how do you change? They say hire on attitude, change for skill. When you're a virtual consultant, how do you change that mentality that we have a break-even point, and if we're going to have 50% overhead like everyone did in the 70s. Then we're going to have to reach that number before we go eat lunch. And then we're going to come back and we're going to do it again. How do you change that mentality?
I first start by motivating them, because if they can learn these things, these are life skills, like you're saying, they're used in your homes, they're used everywhere. So if you can learn the people skills and the life skills, then you become a very good employee. So I think when I'm talking to them, I get them to understand that I'm here to help, and that I've been there, done that, and I never affected my boss's bottom line, because I always made more. And the only way to get raises or to stay in, because your dentist is providing, your livelihood, and so you should really appreciate that they have the vehicle to get you to your dreams. So you should be helping each other. Sometimes the dentist goes through a rough time, and you're trying to help them get through that rough time as a team. So you do become like a family. But yeah, basically they just need to step up and figure out how to make the office grow as a practice, so they can all help each other, so they can all get their dreams. And I think a lot of it has to do with goal setting and figuring out how to get there.
Heidi, I'm a big fan of your post on Dentaltown. I mean, you've posted over 300 times. Now, in your signature link, have you announced that this program comes out June 15th?
Not yet.
Because do you understand the signature link under a post? Because when you post, if you homies aren't aware of it, but when you post, but then there's a line that underneath there is your signature. Yep. So if some of the biggest labs in America were built because the lab tech would be lab owner be giving advice on the Crown and Bridge lab, but then dentists would see the advice and they'd see underneath the signature, oh, this guy owns a lab. Here's his website, phone number, email. So I still think the best marketing in dentistry is when you share answers for free with questions on the message boards. But that video you have on your website, when you launch that program, you could even drop that video in the signature.
I will be.
Yeah.
I wanted you to be the first to hear.
Aw, you're so sweet. Let me. I have that plane. So you said it's June 15th.
Yep.
Do you want us to release this June 15th, or do you want us to pre-release it? Have you talked to her about that?
Yeah, we're going to pre-release it, and then I'm going to get started on June 15th.
Okay, and you said it's 6 webinars?
Yep, I'm going to do 2 Wednesdays during a lunch, 2 Wednesdays a month for 3 months.
2 Wednesdays. Yeah. So each webinar is an hour for the lunch?
Yep, and then I'll stay on for questions and answers. And they're recorded.
And they're recorded.
So they get a link. Mm-hmm.
So you excited about this?
Yeah.
When you say you try to motivate staff, what type of violence do you use to motivate staff? You threaten them with firing. You hit them with a frying pan. You point a gun at them. How does a dentist motivate staff? You were saying at the very beginning that, and I agree with that. That if you ever give anyone constructive criticism, the next 10 things got to be a compliment. You just can't always be writing people. And I've always thought it needs to be about 10 to 1. And I've always been surprised at some of my longest term staff who, they got to trust you, with their life, forever. I tell them, I've told all my staff that, I've never had a staff member that been with me over 5 years where I didn't think of them as a brother or a sister. Mm-hmm. And, but you still, God, you just try to give them just a little bitty critique, like, when you did that, why don't next time we do that? And you can just see in their eyes, like, they're just like let down, like, I can't believe, that you had any feedback. So it's very delicate, isn't it?
Yeah, I actually ran a survey on a website asking the employees what they wanted, and 99% of them just wanted compliments. And so I think complimenting them in front of other staff members or in front of the patients would probably make the biggest impact.
Well, and it's different with the generations. Like, I think, the greatest generation, all the retirements, they were that World War II mentality. So all their coaches and dental school deans were like an army general, yelling in your face. And then the Generation Xers got a little softer than the millennials are just, they all get a trophy if they just show up to the game. They don't even have to get out of the car. They just show up to the game with a Starbucks coffee and sit on the bench, and they'll get a first place trophy. It's really, I wonder if that's something that's going to swing back the other way. I mean, because I always tell people, if you want to understand leadership, quit reading books about leaders you never met or lived 100 years ago. Go back in your life. Who are the leaders that really touched you? Who, and that would, for me, that'd have been my dad and my wrestling coach. Hell, if I lost a match, when I walked off, my sweat was thrown at my face as hard as he can. And if the zipper was in front, it really hurt. I remember one time the zipper thing hit my front central, and that tooth for like 3 or 4 days was sensitive to hot and cold and all that stuff. But that really worked for me, and it worked for the whole team. But you just couldn't even do that today. I mean, I couldn't even imagine if a wrestling coach with a high school student me threw the sweats at the guy's face from losing, he'd probably be fired.
Yeah, my husband got a full ride for wrestling too.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever pinned him once?
No.
Yeah, but you have an evil tool that's not fair, and that is they're still ticklish, right?
Yeah. He had tape wrapped around his mouth when I think he was 5 years old, and a teacher taped his mouth shut. They couldn't do that anymore.
I went to Catholic school. I got open hand slapped across the face at least once a year. And the funniest thing of my biggest high school memory, in fact, I shouldn't say this on a podcast because I might get back to Trujillo, but a priest picked him up and he went to slam against the door, but beside the door was a little like 2-foot pane of glass, by the door. and I don't know if his hand, his elbow, or whatever, but when he slammed him against the door, that whole thing shattered. But God dang, it was discipline. It was just totally discipline, and now that's just looked at as, you know, violence and, you know, horrible. It's tough. I don't know what, but go back. So how do you? I'll specifically ask the question: how do you try to motivate staff to do more production, to bring down the overhead, since we've switched from indemnity insurance to these PPOs with 35 to 40% write-offs? So a lot of these dental offices aren't even breaking even till 2:30 in the afternoon, and then they want to know why their overhead is 65%, and then the staff all wants to leave right at 5, and they start getting hissy if someone's going to stay over and, God forbid, do an MOD composite at the end of the day just to drive the overhead from 65% to 60%. How do you motivate that government healthcare mentality? Because in America, you can have a pizza delivered in 30 minutes. The only time I could leave right now on Memorial Day weekend and go buy a car, get pizza delivered, Chinese delivered, and my house caught on fire, your husband would show up. The only thing you couldn't get on this weekend would be an emergency toothache scene. Am I right? I mean, and the only times I ever find a line in the United States of America is when I'm dealing with the government or healthcare. You have to wait 3.5 hours to get in an emergency room. You don't have to wait 3.5 hours at Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. You don't have to wait 3.5 hours for a drink. You don't have to wait 3.5 hours for anything in life except healthcare and the government. I mean, just completely crazy. So how do you motivate and change healthcare and government in the United States where everyone has this mentality?
Boy, I'm not sure how to change the government. As far as the entitlement mentality, you got to just hire the right people. I didn't grow up with entitlement attitude. My parents made me work and earn everything I had, and I think I appreciate it. I learned the value of a dollar really young. And I think even giving a staff member a dollar raise doesn't do much. What, it brings $150 a month home and taxes and whatever. It's not really, it doesn't really do a whole lot. But I think if you knew exactly what they wanted, like, their kid wants to go to karate school or something more specific where they're talking about exactly what you bought them, I think it would go over better than a raise.
I did that with my 4 kids too. I didn't give them any money, and I was so proud of them. By 6th grade, they were all selling drugs.
Yeah.
Just very, very entrepreneurial.
Is Ryan
Right. I see. I can say whatever I want because Ryan's the editor of this thing, so he can edit everything out. So so June 15th. So this is so how long is that, Heidi? That's this is the 29th. So it's coming out in basically 2 weeks and 3 days. So you're gonna release it on a Wednesday. I'm so excited for you, and the only thing I feel sorry about you and your industry is that the dentist won't blink at buying an $80,000 laser, a $100,000 3D X-ray machine, a $150,000 CAD/CAM machine, or flying all the way from here to Brazil to learn how to surgically place an implant. And they just never want to spend any money on a consultant because the problem with the dentist is everyone told them their whole life how smart they were. Oh, you got an A in math, an A in calculus, an A. So they just think they're so smart. And everyone told them they were so smart. And so if I'm really smart, Heidi, why do I have to ask someone else for help? Do you think it's because do you think they're embarrassed? Do you think they just think, well, God, I mean, obviously, if a dental consultant knows what to do, I know what to do. Is it arrogance? Why don't they raise their hand for help? And I've said this 1,000 times and I keep saying it. The dentists who are taking home 150 or less at age 40 to 50, they never used a consultant. And every dentist I know who's taking home 3, 4, 5, 600,000, by the time they're my age, I'll say, which consultants did you use? And they'll name like 6. And they'll go back and they'll say, well, this one taught me that, and this one taught me that. They're always thinking, man, God, if I can just take 20, 30, 50 grand and invest it in my office and take it from $1.4 million to $1.5 million, $1.6 million. I mean, and the most well-run offices I know of have used consultants. 20 out of the 40 years they were in existence. So why? So how do you try to reach the ones who need it the most, won't buy it, and the ones who need it the least are going to line up at your door? How do we change that as a profession?
Well, the ones that don't buy it are probably because they're afraid it won't work for them. And so making a 100% money back guarantee and only 3 months long, I'm like, it's a no-brainer. It's as inexpensive as it gets. If you don't want to get your staff trained and figure out how to get patients say yes to their treatment plan and make $500 more a day, I can't help you.
What if one of my homies listening, because everybody listening to you right now is commuting to work. That's why we do these an hour long, because everyone says they have an hour commute. And what's interesting is that you think an hour commute would be like in LA or Phoenix, but it seems like it's all rural. They say I live in a town of 3,000 and my office is 80 minutes away, and it's a town of 1,800. But they're on their commute to work. Can they call you, or do you prefer email or?
Yep, I mean, my email's Heidi at coachingdentist.com. If they want to call and ask any questions, it's 503-550-6742. It's pretty easy to remember when you're in dental because it's 550 OSHA.
Say the number again. It's what? 503?
550
550
6742.
6742, and 6742 spells OSHA?
I think so.
Really? Did you do that on purpose, or that just happened?
I've had the same number forever.
Wow. Okay. Well, Heidi, it's an honor that on Memorial Day weekend, you would take an hour out of your life and spend it with me and Ryan. And I just, like I say, best of luck. I am a huge fan of yours. And I also love consultants from, I call Newburgh, Oregon, real world. I think another thing dentists are afraid of is that, if you're in some small town in Oklahoma or Ohio, and you hear all this fancy stuff going on with celebrity dentists in rich towns like Manhattan or, just big money areas, you think, well, that's not going to work in Nebraska. But if it works in Oregon, it would pretty much work in 90% of all the towns, wouldn't you say?
Yes.
So I know what you're going to do the rest of the day, because isn't Oregon one of only 2 states that legalize marijuana?
Yeah,
what is it? Washington, Oregon, and Colorado?
Colorado, I think, is where it started, wasn't it?
Colorado's, I think, full legal. But isn't Oregon one too? Yeah.
We have dispensaries everywhere. I hope it makes my value of my house go up.
Really? Is there a lot of dispensaries? And what are your thoughts on that? Do you think that was a good thing or a bad thing, or?
Well, I thought texting and driving was bad and causing a lot of accidents. I can't imagine now stoned. I don't know.
I don't really know. I imagine it's like alcohol. Some people can come home and have a beer, and some people have to get up in the morning and drink a beer for breakfast. So I'm sure it's going to be that. But I'm not sure about smoking and driving, because it seems like the potheads are the ones driving home at 12 miles an hour, and the whiskey drinkers are the ones that wrap their car around a tree. So I don't know. I know one thing. I know in Colorado is selling so much weed, their average house price has gone up 5% more than the national average. But I love the data in The Economist. The marijuana cartels in Central and South America and Mexico are plummeting.
Huh.
So we're definitely taking, which is a good thing. I mean, it's, American substance abuse shouldn't make all the governments south of our border corrupt from narco money. So I just think the best thing about it is take the money out of the narco travelers, and so there'll be less corruption from Mexico to Peru,
Yeah.
But well, hey, tell your husband thanks for putting his life on the line every day. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable. And Heidi, I hope that coaching dentists, I hope your program takes off, and I hope lots of dentists that are struggling. Just remember one thing. If you're passionate about wanting to place implants and to get a laser and CAD CAM and all that stuff, that's awesome. That is so awesome. But remember, you got to get your house in order. And your house in order if you're a restaurant, your house in order has nothing to do with whether you sell lasagna or chicken or apple pie. Business is business. get your house in order. And I wish a prerequisite for anybody buying $100,000 toy, like anything, is that they first had to spend half that money on a consultant so that they could buy it in cash. But when you sit there and have no money and you're stressed out and you have to lease all these things for 7 years and you think that's the magic bullet that's going to turn your office around, you just couldn't be more wrong. And Heidi, how many of these successful offices have you seen where they don't do any of the fancy toys? They don't place implants, they don't have a CBCT, they don't have a CAD cam, they don't have a laser. They just have a damn good business.
Yep, probably 95%.
I know, but the everybody, all the clutter going on at the conventions, no one realized that every time I meet a dentist grossing $1.5 million, taking home $450, all they have is just recall, fillings, and crowns. They don't have any toys, any initials behind their name, nothing. They just have their house in order. So Heidi, can you help them get their house in order?
You bet. I've got somebody on paper chart still.
All right, let's do it. Thank you, Heidi, for your time.
Thank you so much. Have a nice weekend.